All right, welcome to another episode of Design on Purpose. Hello, Sumo. Hello, Amy Lou.
Hi.
Welcome back. You're actually the first person to be on the show or that we podcasted with before, or you're back on the show. So you're the second time you're appearing, which a lot has happened since the last time you're on the pod, which was at the very beginning of COVID.
I don't even remember when that was anymore.
Yeah, it's a trip.
Years
it's a trip.
ago.
But Rix and I were like in the original Lobster Shack, bunkered down in there, and we're like, shit, let's make a podcast. And we did an episode like via Zoom, didn't we?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It was like one of the first ones.
it's one of the first ones. I don't know if it's still available.
I think we
Do
took
have
them.
it
I think
somewhere?
we took them all down.
Okay. Well, anyway, this one's
I think I
gonna.
was pregnant with Solomon, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, there's definitely been a lot of transformation from, well, I guess in all of our lives, but particularly yours
Yeah.
since then. We keep saying, we're like, oh my gosh, look at Amy Lou now. She's like, looks like there's something that's happened in the
Yeah,
last
you look
little
so
while.
different. I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but you actually look different.
My hair is really long.
No, it's not
Right.
the hair. It's something in your face. Have people
Three
told you that?
children.
3 children, mother of 3. Face changes when you have kids, but like fully.
Does it actually?
Yeah. Yeah, my face has changed so much since I've had kids. My nose has changed. My ears have gotten bigger, gotten older. No, but it's significant.
I don't know if it's that though. I think it's not the age, but it's like, yeah, there's like a shift there.
But I think like changing in the sense that like when you have a baby, you just go through a rite of passage and it changes the way you live your life and it changes the way you express yourself in the world, especially if you have a really empowering experience. Yeah, it's psychedelic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I had one of those.
That was trippy,
that was
actually,
really
wasn't
good.
it? That
Yeah.
because it was quite unique, wasn't it? The birth with Solomon, because he came out encore, which is. Can you describe
Is it
that?
Lotus
So-
birth? Is that what it was? No.
No, we did that as well though, but encore is when the baby is born completely in their amniotic sac. So they say that it happens to 1 in 80,000 babies, but I actually don't believe that that's true because I attend a lot of free births at home, undisturbed births, and probably like 1 in 5 of those babies is born encore. So I think that in the system it's very rare because of all of the interventions that happen and, just fear and, the body just not being able to do its thing. But yeah, I see a lot more at home. So it's cool though, just like holding a baby and it's.
But
little
what's it
amniotic sac.
like in there? The baby is it still in a like relaxed state, or does it know that it's?
Well, because Solomon was born into water, so it's like a really gentle entrance into the world, and they don't really know that they've been born until they take their first breath. So he was in there and he was in his sack, and it was really cool, just like holding him. And the sack was really thick, so it took a second to break it and get it off him, and then brought him up to my chest.
Experience.
It's really cool. It was really funny when he was coming out. I touched his head and I couldn't feel his face. And I had this thought, I'm like, he has no face. Because it was just like a marble like shape.
Just squishy.
Like a polished sphere shape that had just come out of my body. I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, where's his face? And then he came out. I'm like, oh,
He's beautiful.
He's got a face
He's
now,
got a
that's
face.
for sure. He's so cute.
yeah. But we did a Lotus birth after that as well, which is when you allow the baby and the placenta to separate on their own terms. So for some people it takes like 3 days and some people it takes up to 9 days, and you basically just leave the baby attached to their placenta until the cord dries and it pops off.
Wow.
And that's it.
process.
There's no other like
Messing with
messing with whatever is remain like.
No, Solomon's popped off like halfway, I guess, so there was about that much left over, so we burnt it and made it a bit smaller. But yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's probably one of the, like, apart from giving birth, that's one of the most, profound experiences of my life, to experience a Lotus birth.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what's the benefit of doing it that way?
So in my opinion, the placenta is a being. It's like the baby's twin being, and they've grown together and exchanged information in the womb for like 10 months. And, you know, they're so connected. And when they're born, they're still having an energetic exchange. And when you have a Lotus birth, you can feel it. Like even with me and with Solomon and with his placenta, there was this like energetic exchange happening for, I think it was 5 days. It was like I wasn't here, he wasn't quite here, the placenta was there, and there was this whole story happening, which I can't, there's no language for. And when the placenta popped off, Solomon shared that moment with us, which was really beautiful. And as soon as it got just really dry and brittle and broke, his eyes just like popped open and he was here. And then I was here as well. Like I just suddenly landed, and I didn't experience that with my other babies. So
wow.
It was amazing.
That's so interesting. I've never thought, like, I don't think about this stuff too much apart from when you're sharing it, which has been so, like, you know, just shift my whole perception on so many things around birth and parenting and everything. But like, so like the placenta is like, it's like a creation of both of you almost, isn't it? It's like
a
this
being
in itself.
Yeah.
That's like another part of and it would have, like, I don't know what a placenta is made of exactly, but it would probably be like, have some consciousness.
It has full consciousness. And the baby and the placenta share an aura as well. So when we look at like industrialized birth practices and medicalized birth practices where they cut the cord straight away, even you know, they say leave it for 3 minutes, but that's bullshit. You should leave it for hours, at like minimum a few hours. You're cutting a hole in the aura of the baby and the placenta's like aura, and that can cause, you know, all kinds of ramifications for the baby, because that means they're using their vitality to repair that hole in their aura when they should be using it for like digestion and breathing and like functions that are necessary for them to like land on earth and build strong foundations for their health. Yeah.
And what difference do you notice, like in Solomon, having done that with him and your other kids?
So, I love talking about this with
Go for it.
with Sylvester, my first baby. I think we cut the cord about an hour after he was born, and put the placenta in the freezer. I didn't really look at it, but it was still in the house. And I think a few days later I got it out of the freezer and made some prints with it and made a tincture with it, and I got to experience just holding it and being with it. And I had Sylvester strapped to me, and it was a really intuitive, natural, beautiful experience to have. And I didn't really think about the connection between Sylvester and the placenta at that time. But on reflection, now that I know what I know, I think that it was just a really good experience for him landing here on Earth. But we kept his placenta in the freezer for like 3 years because we were living in a warehouse and living in another share house, and didn't know where we wanted to plant it. And it eventually, we were at our place in the Blue Mountains and we came back from holidays and the freezer had broken and the placenta had gone off. So we ended up planting it in a pot plant, and I noticed that when I planted it, Sylvester landed a little bit in this way that I hadn't noticed before. So it was kind of like a light bulb moment. I was like, that was silly, keeping his placenta in the freezer. Like, that needed to be in the earth, belongs to the earth. And then with Essie, everyone was getting their placentas encapsulated. So I was like, I'll just get it encapsulated. And it got taken away by my midwife. Like, I consented to that. But that first night she was really unsettled, and I just didn't know why, because she had such a beautiful birth. And upon reflection now, after having all of these experiences, I know that it's because her placenta was taken away. And I still feel that grief in her a little bit when I think about that. Yeah. But when we planted Solomon's placenta, I didn't end up eating the capsules because it didn't feel right. So I had just had them, and I emptied them all and popped them in the ground next to Solomon's, and then popped some of Sylvester's tincture in the ground. So they're all together in the same place under this ghost gum tree.
That's so cute.
And I noticed that doing that ceremony with her was really healing for her, to pop her placenta into the earth. So yeah, I've come to this space now where I believe that the placenta, it doesn't belong to us. It's not for consumption. Unless it's an emergency, then it can be useful. But it belongs to the baby and it belongs to the earth. And most cultures in the world bury it. It doesn't get, the frequency of the placenta doesn't get tainted by putting it in a freezer or a plastic container. Like, it's always held with reverence in ceremony. Whether it's like a lotus birth or not a lotus birth, there's always some ceremony around the placenta, because it's a being and it's sacred and it's where we come from. Like, it's our first...
It's like creation,
sibling,
isn't it?
or home. I don't know. Yeah.
What happens? Oh, sorry.
No, you go. I got heaps of questions. There you go.
What happens to a placenta in the hospital? What's the practice there?
Generally, the cord's cut pretty quickly. You might be lucky and get 3 minutes. Unless you're educated and ask for it to be like delayed cord clamping. I've had clients in the hospital that have had a full lotus birth. Much to the staff usually turn their nose up at that kind of thing. Sometimes they don't though. But generally it's medical waste, so it gets tossed in the bin and incinerated. Or they steal blood from the cord for research.
Is that like...
Yeah.
Okay, that's...
Who knows what happens to it?
Oh, God, I don't even want to know. It's horrifying. Yeah. But the blood's stem cell research, and the blood in the placenta, like in the cord, belongs to the baby, and it's so rich in iron and nutrients and there's so much blood in there, and it's oxygenated as well, so it helps them land when they're born. And we see in hospital baby's just gone through the birth canal. Sometimes it takes them a minute or two to land and breathe and realise that they're here. But in the hospital, it's if they're not crying straight away, they'll get taken away. Their cord will get cut. That oxygen supply is just cut. Wow. And all this unnecessary intervention happens to get them breathing. When if they were just left with their mother or their birthing parent and given skin to skin, they would likely just start breathing in their own time.
Why do you think they do that? Do you think it's time? Do you think it's...
Yeah.
What's behind that?
There's so many layers to that. It's business. The hospital is a business, birth is big business, so they want to churn people through that space as quickly as possible. It's all funded by Big Pharma. There's policies that they have to adhere to, because if something goes wrong, they can get sued, and none of those policies are centre the woman's experience at all, or birth as a sacred rite of passage. So, I think most hospitals, you're given 8 to 12 hours to have your baby from the time you show up to the hospital. That's fucking ridiculous.
Wow.
There's no linear time in that realm.
It's looked at... I'm having that weird flashbacks almost. I don't know what my birth was like, but I'm just kind of picturing being birthed in a hospital, which I was, but it's and just the experience of what it would be like to be coming out and all the noises and the fluoro lights and
traumatizing
that whole situation. But it's like a medical emergency kind of feeling, isn't it? Created there, not a birth. It's a procedure that's
procedure is
a medical procedure, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, it's not, but
that's how it's treated.
It's treated.
That's exactly how it's treated.
The framework that they look at it.
Yeah, and just even the position that most women give birth in a hospital is so the medical practitioners that are there have a better view and can get the baby out in a way that's easier for them. It's a procedure for sure. There's no warmth. There's no space for the woman to just melt into her power. It's impossible. It does happen sometimes for sure, but you have to fight for it, and you need to have care providers that understand that birth is a sacred rite of passage and help create an environment for that to happen. But it's pretty rare.
You do hear like a lot of traumatic stories, don't you? Like whether it's from the mothers in their experience, but then also how that manifests in like in adults that have grown up having had a traumatic birth experience.
Yeah.
Birth imprint.
Is
Birth
it?
imprint.
Oh, is that what you call it?
Yeah, or limbic imprint or birth imprint is, when we're born, we're born with, our nervous system is clear, it's free, it's open. And from the moment that we're born, whatever is happening in that space, whatever energy is present, whoever's there imprints upon us. And often it's under traumatic circumstances or on drugs or, mishandled or not cared for or, just completely not even seen as a being or a sentient being. There's procedures that they do to babies where they put a screw in their head to like monitor their heart and pull them out with a vacuum with a suction cap on their head, and just all kinds of horrible, violent
And are the mothers
procedures happen.
Are the mothers told about these procedures, or like how are these procedures presented to somebody, whether before they happen or do they ask permission? And do people even know what they mean when they are asked permission?
I think it'd be safe to say that no. Like most of the time, these types of interventions aren't explained in a way where the person giving birth can give informed consent, which is horrifying because, for example, the screw in the head, they refer to it as a clip, and it's a fetal scalp electrode.
Wow.
I actually
doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, well, they say we're just going to put a little clip on baby's head to monitor it. It's actually a screw, like a spring screw. I had one put into my head when I was born, and most people do, especially if, the mother's had an epidural or had drugs, because the babies get distressed, obviously, because the hormone flow is being disrupted. And so the care providers will say, just put a little clip in baby's head. If they said, we're just going to put this fetal scalp electrode screw into your baby's head, I'm pretty sure the response from the parents would be different, Yeah, but...
And also, what a kind of way to have to make decisions like that when you're in labour.
Yeah, it shouldn't have to. It should never be like that. Yeah.
And
so wrong.
How do people prefer, like, if someone is going to give birth in a hospital, like, how do they prepare themselves going into that? Or you just say, you just don't go there?
I just say don't go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, like some people have to, I suppose, because of circumstances or, it's not always safe for people to give birth at home. They don't always have the means to give birth at home. But if you can, stay away from the hospital. If you have to go to hospital, just make sure you have like a support team that's like really knows their shit, that's really on your side, that's not going to, cave in to the pressure that the system will put on you, because they will, even if they say they won't, a lot of midwives are like, we really want you to have this beautiful water birth. But when it comes to it, they're under hospital policy. They have to adhere to, APRA, which is the governing medical body, hospital policy, everything. And so anything that forces them to, goes against that, makes more paperwork for them, makes their job more difficult. It puts, according to their policy, puts the baby at risk, which it probably doesn't. But yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't know, just like...
It's like you have to be so on your game with this stuff.
Yeah, get a doula.
Because I don't know the statistics at all, but like from your perspective, how often would somebody giving birth need serious medical intervention that a hospital would have to provide?
Well, the statistics are they're terrible. I don't even look at the statistics anymore because it's just so bad. If a person, if women were birthed undisturbed, I would say that, you know, the need for intervention would be like maybe 5% of births. That's just a guess. It would be really low.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be really low. There's really no need for intervention most of the time if birth is left undisturbed.
Well, I can't even imagine the courage it would take to have a home birth, give birth at home.
Yeah,
like that's such a
even just
huge...
birth in general.
Well, yeah,
and then like to really take the leap and to, you know, when you've been told that it's got to be this way through everything.
It's a risk if you don't, you know.
Well, everyone's probably around you like pressuring you, going, "Oh, are you sure about this?"
Yeah,
you know?
people are afraid. Yeah, it's really triggering for people, but it's triggering their own birth trauma most of the time. And a lot of their fears don't even belong to them. You know, it's conditioning from movies. You see in movies, we grow up with women in pain giving birth on their back in a white robe with like men around them, like, you know, pretending to be experts of their bodies. And so all that conditioning just like filters through, and it's definitely something that a lot of people who choose to give birth outside the system come up against.
And how does that, like, in the work that you do with dueling, is that what you say that you're a doula? Because
Not so
you're a
much
bit of a
anymore.
gatekeeper, aren't you? Or
I say like birth keeper sometimes. I've kind of been playing with birth guide lately. I don't know. I don't say doula anymore. Birth keeper, yeah.
And so what's that like in that partnership, in working with a new mother and how they, you know, how do you guys work together to prepare and then go through the birthing gateway together?
So for me and my work where I'm at now, it's really beautiful because all of my clients birth outside the hospital system, mostly free birth without a midwife as well.
Wow.
It's amazing because of all of these people who I'm working with have done the work to get to the point where that's what they want to do. So a lot of it is just really getting to know them, you know, forming a really deep connection through just like hanging out, having lots of cups of tea, having heaps of yarns and just sharing really deeply with each other. So when I am in their space, you know, it's such an honour to be invited into someone's birth space. I'm usually just there as a witness. I don't really do much most of the time. I'm usually reading my book or drinking cups of tea and might blow up the birth pool or fill it up. And sometimes I'm like a bit more hands-on, but usually the partner is really on board in you know, those types of births. The partner's usually pretty present with the woman, which is beautiful. So I'm just there as like a witness. I take photos and it's beautiful. Like it's just happens.
That's at the point of birth, but what about the lead up or during the pregnancy?
Just, lots of cups of tea and
Sounds like a great job you got yourself there, mate.
I'm not a medically trained person, so I don't offer any medical advice or anything like that. I'm just there as an emotional support. So, you know, for some people that means helping them discover their personal boundaries with family and assert their personal boundaries with family, especially if family don't agree with their choice. For some people, it's helping them move through fear, helping them process but previous birth trauma. Debriefing previous birth trauma is quite a common one because a lot of people choose to free birth after they've had a traumatic first birth in the system or with a midwife. I don't know. It looks different for everyone.
Wow.
It's like so different for everyone. It's like a full journey.
Doesn't Essie help you a bit?
Yeah,
Essie and
that's what I was about to
Sylvester, aren't
say.
they like mad?
Haven't they
doulas
witnessed
now?
many births now? Yeah.
Birth guides?
Essie's been to a few. Sylvester's only been to his Essie and Solomon's. I would not take. Oh, sorry. I started leaning over that way. I wouldn't take Solomon to a birth. He's turbo.
Really?
He's not allowed. But Essie was chill. I just took her, wore her in a little, you know what I mean. Just wore it on my body. And
But Sylvester wears like a cape
backpack.
and shit like that, doesn't he?
Yeah, at Solomon's birth, he dressed up as super midwife and he had he had this like Flash Gordon muscle man shirt on and a cowboy hat and a
So
cape, and he
good.
came out. He's like, "I'm super midwife," and it It was so cool. He was my midwife. He knew everything though. Like this little, with some women, this dark line appears above like their butt crack. And when it gets to about 10 centimetres, it usually means that they're dilated about 10 centimetres or so, or baby's close. And he knew that. He was looking at my butt and he's like, oh, mum's got that line. The baby must be close.
Wow.
He was like 6 years old.
What's that like, including the kids in the process?
It's the best. It's so
It would
awesome.
change your life so much, knowing having that experience as a young child.
It's just so normal. Like, I couldn't imagine not having them there, hearing them playing. It was just a normal day. Like, I woke up and had a baby and then had lunch and my kids were there.
And super midwife was there.
Yeah, and they were so chill. They were playing the whole time. And my friend came over because it was daytime and Essie just wanted food and Jeff, and I wanted Jeff. So my friend came over to help with Essie. But yeah, it's just so normal. And there's, a lot of people like, oh, what are you going to do with your kids? What if they get scared? I'm like, what are they going to be scared of? Like, the room is full of oxytocin. Like, we're going to be high. Like, I want them to share this high, Yeah, and they're like playing music and stuff and just eating and playing dinosaurs on the floor.
What about bonding as siblings? Like, do you think that impacts in a way? Because I imagine like if you were there for your sibling's birth, that's next level.
Yeah, I remember you sharing photos, I think, of Sylvester and was it Essie or something, and like at the time, and you're just like, oh, that is so
It's
special.
so precious. When Essie was born, Sylvester's like, oh my God, it's her birthday. Everyone has to sing her happy birthday. And everyone just started singing happy birthday like 2 minutes after she was born. We recorded it. It's really beautiful. And then so when Solomon was born, we did that again because it became tradition.
It's a good tradition.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so normal. And I definitely think that it helps, especially when they're really little and they don't really understand, like, baby's in there and then suddenly baby's here. Like, they wouldn't understand how baby gets from there to there. So,
and also, like, I would imagine it would give them a sense of their purpose as a sibling, being a part of that process where they've seen themselves in the, like, they've helped facilitate that there, rather than it just kind of getting told, oh, now you've got a little baby sister or something, like being like that would just shift your whole perception of what it's like to be and I imagine it would eliminate a lot of like the older sibling trauma and things like that could happen too, and because they're seeing themselves in the process rather than it just happening. And
I totally believe that. I've seen so many siblings at birth and it's always been so natural and so beautiful and so normal, and like to the point where a lot of siblings just get bored and like we'll go and watch Netflix or something and there's like, mum's taking so long, this is so boring, just call me when the baby's coming.
not Sylvester.
No, he was in it the whole time. Yeah, he's my little midwife. Super midwife. And when a baby's born, everyone who's present in that space gets a rush of oxytocin, which is the bonding hormone. So it's so beautiful to like witness that in your younger other children.
And what about Jeff? Because he's quite like he plays a big role in that too. Obviously, I mean the partner always does, but how's Jeff in that? Because I know like in this last birth you had with Solomon, he had it all set up with like he had
many cameras.
He had like the music going. There was a bit of a vibe happening.
Yeah, we had like an above view camera over the pool. It was so
classic.
Good. Yeah, classic Jeff. Yeah, he's great. He's awesome.
He'd be a pro now, wouldn't he?
Yeah, 4 kids. He he's just so trusts birth and trusts women, trusts our bodies to birth. It's never been an issue. He's just awesome. Just present, totally present the whole time. Yeah. And so just cool. Cries so much and it's just so full of love and joy. It's beautiful. Yeah. And it's amazing, like in the hospital, when I've attended hospital births, the partner, the man generally kind of gets pushed aside and, all these other people just come in and take over or interrupt the space or interrupt the flow. And it's really sad because, the man they're not physically giving birth, but they're going through an initiation as well and sacred rite of passage. And it's really important that they're present with their partner and present in that whole experience in whatever way they need to be. And I just see that that's either they're pushed aside or they haven't had any guidance from other males in their life or their fathers or their, brothers. So they don't know how to be present in that space. So a lot of work I do is also with partners if they're feeling anxious or not comfortable with, how they're going to be in the birth space, or sometimes, bringing them back into their body when they're there, if they're dissociating a little bit, because I see that sometimes, not so much.
A lot of blood.
Yeah, it's actually amazing for the kids to see the blood. Yeah, it's really just normalize the blood, sacred blood of creation, and that's really cool. But yeah, it's beautiful to witness embodied men in the birth space. And it's happening more and more, which is cool.
Well, we were there. Yeah. We were around when Felipe and Gabby had little Kate's. No, we weren't at the birth, but like we were working with Felipe, and he's like, "Okay, it's happening. I gotta go." I was
at your house that night.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Remember? So even just to be around, like when it's happening, even not in the room, like it's so exciting to be in the circle of friends when it's the moment that's going on.
Yeah, it's so exciting. It's really hard to sleep. Their birth was incredible. It was just so beautiful. Yeah.
And what about, like, is there something that you do with the parent? So the father like holding the baby, or there's something to do with the skin, isn't there? That
skin to skin,
yeah.
Yeah, it's essential. It needs to happen. It's happens very naturally at home, obviously, but in the hospital it's usually interfered with, and it needs to happen straight away, because when the baby's born, the act of bringing the baby up to the chest completes the birth. Doesn't complete the birth. The birth's not complete until the placenta's born, but for the baby, it completes the birth process, I guess. So they know that they've been born when they've been placed onto the chest, and they can hear the heart beating, and then they can, find the nipple if they're ready. Yeah. But yeah, it's really important, and just to regulate their nervous system and just land.
Wow, that must be such a wild experience.
So cool.
Oh my gosh.
It doesn't get old ever. It's amazing with each baby.
Yeah, wow. How did you, I know that, you've done, you're an artist, you're creative, you used to live in the desert as well, didn't you? Isn't that where you met Jeff? Yeah,
we met in Alice Springs.
How did you get into the birth work? Like, was that something that you always sort of had you're leaning towards on seeing yourself going, or was it something that you got to at a certain age, and like, why did you, what's the sort of journey there?
I think, after I had Sylvester, I had such a great experience. Like, the first thing I said after I had Sylvester was like, I just want to do that again. I can't wait to do that again. It was so amazing. And so many people in my life at that time were like, why? Like, birth hurts, birth's shit. Like, there was so much birth trauma in my world around me, and I realized that my experience was really rare and that something was wrong. Why aren't all women or most women feeling euphoric after they give birth? And so I guess I kind of became a bit curious. I didn't know that there was this whole home birth world out there. I just had him at home because I don't like hospitals. But I didn't know
at
anything.
Home, and when you say home, it was a
warehouse in Marrickville.
Yeah, with all my housemates were outside the door and popped a bottle of champagne as soon as he was born. It was pretty cool. And then they wrote him a letter.
No wonder he sings happy birthday when other people get born. It's like his birthday.
And he's a Leo as well, so it was such a Leo entrance. But yeah, I think it was just a natural progression. I was a social worker and a youth worker, and have always been kind of drawn to community care. And so I just feel like, a lot of women, when they go through that rite of passage, feel drawn to doing that work, whether it's for a long period of time or a short period of time. I think that naturally, if we were living more in tune with the rhythms and the cycles of the earth, more women would be doing this kind of work in their communities after they have babies, because we're supposed to be holding each other through these experiences. We're not supposed to be outsourcing to midwives, or like when I say midwife, I mean like a medically trained midwife, but like traditionally a midwife wasn't so, gagged by policies. So I don't want to badmouth midwives, but sometimes it sounds like I am. I just think, when we're living in tune to the cycles of the earth and birthing with the cycles of the earth and doing it naturally and doing it on our terms, then it makes sense that, women want to help other younger women go through that rite of passage in a really healthy way. So that's I feel like that's my service in this season of my life, but I don't think that it's something that I'm going to continue doing for a long time. Yeah.
Because there's something in that too, isn't there, around like reclaiming your body as a woman and
massively
reclaiming that power. Because like you said earlier, it's like you see all these images of women in hospitals birthing, on a table surrounded by men. And being, telling them that they know more about their bodies.
Yeah.
So
your baby's going to die. This is happening. Your body's not working. We have to help you. We have to help get your baby out. Like, it's so bad. It's really doing a lot of damage. And I think that, if you think about how most people are born and you look at the state of the earth and you look at the state of like how people are living their lives, you can really draw a lot on their birth imprint and how they were received into the world and how they were cared for as a newborn, and how their mother was treated and how that, is probably generations of women in their families were treated during birth. It's really traumatic.
Is there a way to find out your birth imprint? Obviously, other than speaking to your mother, but like, is there a way to? Does anyone do any work where they kind of help you kind of navigate that and find that out, or do you think it's?
I think it's so different for everyone. Like, not everyone's mother is always open to talking about it.
Yeah.
Some people's mothers aren't here anymore.
Yeah.
But, just through memories, I'm sure you could go and talk to psychics or, I don't know, people that can give you some more insights into that kind of thing. Yeah. For me, like I had a recurring dream when I was a child that I was like getting pushed through this space, this really cramped space, and I was really claustrophobic and I was really frightened, and I had this recurring dream like my whole childhood, and I didn't know what it was from. And I realised as an adult that it was my birth when I started doing more inquiry into my own birth. And I was induced and Mum was given an epidural, so the flow of hormones wasn't functioning at all.
What is an epidural?
An epidural is like a sedative that's given into the spinal cord stops. It doesn't work on everyone. It works on most people, stops the feeling in the body, but it completely like shuts off the flow of hormones. So baby doesn't really know that they're being born. They're basically just being forced out of this space.
I think my mum had that.
Most women do, unfortunately. Yeah. So, I was born like shit scared. I was so scared, and Mum had a syntocinon, which is the induction drug that they give you if to start labour, and so that's synthetic oxytocin.
Yeah.
Which is really, it doesn't encourage any hormonal communication in the body. So, babies are just being forced out of the womb before they're ready.
I'm pretty sure
on drugs.
I'm pretty sure that happened to me because my mum was birthing a foal. I'm pretty sure this is a story, was birthing a foal and got the placenta on her hands.
You told me this story.
And it kicked off the labour.
That's amazing.
I need to investigate that further, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
And it's really interesting. Like for me, the way that's played out in my life is that I'm really good at starting stuff. Like Mum went into labour naturally with me, but then she had the drugs during labour to kind of get things going because it was happening slowly, but, it was just happening as it was meant to. I don't do anything fast. And I'm really good at starting things. I get like a crisis of confidence at the end of a project or just before I birth a project. I really need people to come and reassure me, and I actually just want people to hold my hand and do the rest for me. I vague out really easily, like if I feel overwhelmed or, can't quite get words out, I'll just like kind of drift off. Yeah.
So interesting. I'm pretty sure I was like straight out like that, and that
makes
probably
sense.
says a lot about me as well.
Yeah.
That makes sense for sure.
Oh wow.
Yeah, but it's not a bad thing. Like, it's not a bad thing. It's just another thing to work
Your mum
with.
appreciated it.
I think she did.
Yeah.
And what about what you said there earlier, that you're going to do, this is kind of a phase in your life that you're going through this and helping other mothers to birth in this way, but and you say you won't do that forever. So what do you see yourself doing, and where does this journey lead to?
I'm not sure.
Because you do a bit of work with death as well, don't you?
Yeah, just kind of starting to do more in that realm. I haven't supported, I've supported people through grief and after death, but I haven't supported anyone through death and dying yet. But yeah, just kind of starting to move more into that space. And I think it's 'cause my parents are getting old and I'm preparing for their deaths, which, could happen at any time. I want to be able to step into that space and feel confident to step into that space and care for them and care for their bodies. So that's kind of what, sparked my interest in that. But yeah, I don't know if that's like something I'll do for a job so much. Yeah, I don't know. I just want to go back to making art, I think, and then be a person in the community that can support people giving birth and dying as well. Maybe. I don't know.
Because you're doing mentorships and stuff at the moment, aren't you? There's
Yeah.
programs you're running, and what does that look like?
Oh, it's amazing. It's, just every week meeting with a bunch of amazing humans and just talking about everything, life and death and care work and how we can show up in our communities and care for our kindreds and our family in a really beautiful, authentic way that celebrates them and their lives and their experiences and celebrates sacred rites of passage. And so, I invite all kinds of amazing people into the mentorship to come and speak, from like a lot of elders, but yeah, lots of really amazing people in the community, like death workers. And I had a beautiful woman come and share her early birth story, which was like amazing. And yeah, we had a couple of death walkers come in, and some elder midwives, and
Wow, that's amazing.
people who were really experienced with pregnancy and using plant medicine and ways that can prepare people for birth, and that rite of passage is really cool. Yeah.
Wow, is that a in-person thing, online combo?
It's online at the moment, but I want to do it in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just have to wean my baby. I can't do much in person at the moment. Once Solomon is off the boob within the next year or so, I'll be doing more in person, I think. Yeah. It's really beautiful. I love it so much. And the idea is that, I'm facilitating it, but the idea is that we're, storytelling and sharing our experiences and learning from each other. So there's no like hierarchical learning. And we're just coming back to storytelling and coming back to, lived experience and, the old way of learning that type of craft. Because we all know how to care. It's in all of us. It just takes a bit of digging for some people to activate that space of being in service and care work and sovereign care work. And a lot of people don't even know that you can do these things outside of the system. And then when they realize, it's like a light bulb goes off. And
that'll be a big difference too, I guess. Like the more people that this becomes normal to, that this is possible.
Yeah.
Then the less you're going to get those people in your ear if you are thinking about it, kind of telling you, it's a scary thing, and then you start questioning it.
Oh, exactly. We've got to bringing birth and death back into the hands of the community, because it's absolutely just destroying people's experiences and people's lives and people's spirit. It's really bad. And I think, when, especially death, a lot of people are afraid of death and don't understand or don't realize that death care can be really beautiful and that you can do it in your house and that you don't have to hire anyone. And, there's so many amazing ways that you can celebrate someone and honor their body without having to go to a funeral parlor or a morgue or like a funeral home or anything like that. So, and a lot of people just come up against their own fear of death when they lean into how that process could be. And it's a really beautiful space to kind of work through that fear. And most people come out of it realizing that their fear of death isn't theirs. It's like a cultural kind of fear of death.
It's really put on us, isn't it? This whole idea of dying, and it's so taboo and like just
live as much as you can.
Hidden away.
Yeah, it really destroys your quality of life when you're scared of dying.
It can work in both ways, can't it? Like where you limit yourself so much. But it's also such a special thing and rare. Well, it's rare at the moment because of the way it is, but it's like when you're with somebody that is dying, that's such a special, like the perspective that they have and the things that they say is like, it's so amazing because it's like you're only ever in that stage of your life once and then that's it and it's over, and it's like that's such a amazing moment, where they know that they're going, and they have these messages and they've got something to express still, and they're lucid and
they're in an altered state of consciousness, and everyone in the space around them is in an altered state of consciousness, and it's like the same energy as birth. They're the same thing. It's just one's an entrance and one's an exit. And I was speaking to this beautiful death walker who I speak to in the US, and she shared with me that every single person she's worked with who has died and who is in the process of dying just feels like love and joy, and they move, once they've moved through all of the fears and the sadness and the grief, they just move into this place of like openness and love and joy. And she said she's never worked with anyone who is being scared of dying when they're in active dying. And I think there's something so profound in that for me. When she said that, I was like, yeah, that's...
Because your body probably knows what's to do in that instance as well, like birthing. Like
Yeah.
You probably go through some instinctual process.
Yeah. When a baby is ready to be born, the last part of their body to develop is their lungs. And so when their lungs are fully developed, it sends like a message to the mother's brain to start releasing oxytocin and start the birth process. And so it's amazing. And that's where our biggest supply of DMT lives. And that's what we use to take our first breath, and that's what floods our body when we're born and when we die. And it's just it's so beautiful. And there's so much in that, isn't there?
Well, that's a
whole other conversation.
It's a deep one, but it's true though, isn't it? It's like the DMT, that it's a psychedelic that's in all like living. It's in everything, right?
Yeah.
Or all like plants and conscious things.
Yeah.
Because you wonder with babies, like what are they actually seeing?
They're tripping
for
so many balls.
Long after
You reckon?
born,
Yeah.
their eyes are just like the things that they say, and you're like, what are you seeing? You probably like it must be.
They
like,
look like they know shit though, don't they? Like
because there's like they're just like like in the.
They're fully connected.
They're not in the matrix yet.
Yeah. They have that
yeah, totally.
that soft spot on the top of their head where they're like, skull hasn't fused together yet. And, I believe that they're still like super connected to source when that's still open, and it closes around like 1 to 2 years old.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the transition in little people once that closes. Yeah.
It's like the pineal glands, like just like channeling, or instead of just like blocking it or whatever, I guess.
Yeah.
It's like,
and everything, a little person, I think up until about 3, maybe even a little bit older, everything that they touch and everything that they play with is an extension of their body. So they're, having like such a I don't even know what the word is, but it's
Unifying experience.
Yeah,
It's
when they're
like
touching
full left
anything
brain.
or playing with something, it's not a game, it's real life, you know, and it's a part of their body. And you see, you know, when you take something off a toddler, they like have a tantrum. It's because you're literally ripping like
Yeah.
their limb off.
body away.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
Yeah.
Tearing a limb off.
my hand used to be Lego.
Yeah, totally. We have to go now, though.
So, and at what point, like, because women would have had births at home, I'm sure, like, or, you know, well, probably not that too long ago, really.
Up until probably like 100 years ago, maybe even less, like 70 years ago, it was really normal.
And so what happened there? Like, what was the point where things just got really hospitalized, medical procedurized, or whatever you call it?
It just infiltrated. I think, I mean, I'm not an expert in this, but from what I know is that, you know, people would be in labor and at home, and then they would call a midwife, and the midwife would come over, and then at some point there legally needed to be a doctor come with the midwife, and then at some point the midwife needed to be trained by the doctor, and then it just kind of, that system
The totalitarian tiptoe.
infiltrated that way. And so, yeah, now we're at a point where midwives have to go to university and learn all about medicalised birth in order to get registered to practice as a midwife. But you don't have to do that.
Start using bloody robots and shit in the future.
Oh, my God.
Oh, have you seen those really weird, what are they? They're like incubators for like worms, like synthetic worms. That shit freaks me out.
Yeah.
It's like a real thing.
I can't go there.
No, let's not. But yeah, it's
Keep it real.
Yeah.
Far out.
Yeah, it just infiltrated that way. But there's
I guess it kind of corresponds with or does it, like with the industrialization of everything, right?
Everything.
Like school, food, all this stuff, like medical, like just tech.
Same with death care as well. Death care was in the home until about 100 or so years ago. It was really normal to have a body at home and have people, you know, tending to the body and doing.
Because it's such a Western way, like, because, you know, still in other places of the world and other cultures are still doing traditional burials and things, like, you know, like Varanasi in India, where they're cremating public cremations on the Ganges.
You see death everywhere in India.
Yeah,
it's just
everywhere.
so in your face, everywhere.
Yeah.
You see bodies being run around all over the place.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
I love it.
Flowers, all the marigolds.
Normalizes it pretty quickly for you, doesn't it? And shave, but the whole tradition around it, like people shaving their heads and things. It's
singing.
We saw this carload of people cruising down to the Ganga with their like dead relative strapped to the roof, and they were playing Bollywood music so loud, and everyone had like their drums out the window, and everyone was like cheering and partying.
Can you imagine if that happened here?
Yeah.
Followed by like, you know, 20 cop cars.
Yeah. It's so cool.
wow.
Yeah.
Is that part of the next trip to India?
We're definitely going to go to Varanasi and check it out. I want my kids to see it. I've been there a few times.
These kids are going to see a lot, seen a lot by the time they're adults.
Full on, yeah.
I'm so excited to see what they're like.
Me too. Like, not sending them to school is so great. Like, we can just do anything we want.
Well, yeah, that's a whole lot. Like,
It's a whole other conversation.
Yeah.
But it's a trip, isn't it? Because it's like everything becomes like commercialized. Like every bit of your humanity, from like being born through schooling, like, you know, they're essentially programming you, you know, just everything to going to university, making sure that you're in debt by the time you leave. So then you have to get a job. And you're trained to work.
Get a job at a place that creates the school curriculum or has like stakes in designing it as well. It's like
just as
it's a machine. It's like a full
end-to-end
machine.
process.
Yeah, that was after my birth experiences. It just like became non-negotiable. Like, school isn't even an option for us anymore.
You've just done so many things, like, for me, and I guess I'm not at that stage of my life where I'm, you know, thinking about children or anything, but it's like seeing you do all the things you're doing gives me so much more peace of mind that like it doesn't have to be the way that it is, because there's so many things, like I look back at my childhood or high school or primary school and all that stuff, and it's kind of like, you know, it's hard to sort of get your head around it, but then when you see what you're doing and the path that you're taking your family on, you're like, it can be so much different.
So
like,
different.
And successfully, like it's like you go, hey Sylvester, how's school? And he's like, you know,
he
loves it.
learning. Yeah, dude.
And teaching.
Just we're constantly deschooling ourselves. And the more we do that, the more we're like, oh, far out. Like that place is like not okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty full. Like we live near a school here, and you see, you know,
They don't look happy, do they?
but you see when the school ends and everyone's just walking up the hill, looking literally like zombies.
Yeah, in their uniform.
Walking back
on their phones
home,
usually.
head down, just
Yeah.
kind of like this, and you're like,
Yeah.
that's
Learning should be
It doesn't
fun.
have to be like that.
Yeah. And learning shouldn't you like when you're really learning something, you don't realize that you're learning. Yeah, I could sit here and chat all night long.
No, that's cool. So could we. But we can always do it again, you know. So
I'd love to.
Yeah,
we'll do
well,
a part 2
Yeah.
at some point.
A part 3.
Homeschooling.
Oh, part 3, yes.
Yeah.
Going to schooling.
Yeah.
Yeah, schooling. Yeah, well, that is something like I'd love to get deeper on that sometime.
It's
too,
a
'cause
really
it's-
awesome space to go into, because there's so much fear around homeschooling, and like so many people think they can't do it because they're not teachers, or they can't do it because they don't have time in their lives. But yeah, when you rethink how you live your life and weave work in with schooling, it just becomes life.
Yeah.
And it's not separate, you know. And you're not preparing a child to live in the world because they're already living in the world. You're just letting them lead. And yeah, it's just really cool to flip that around.
So cool. And the message that you're sharing is working too, because I've noticed your Instagram has been cranking up the followers.
Yeah, people are into it. That's
Yeah,
awesome.
when we mention you in like passing, or if you come up,
so many people
go,
know
do
you.
you know Amy Lou? We're like, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Like, so
Yeah.
people know you.
Yeah.
Like the message is getting out.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, I
It
think it's
is.
just such an important one to share. I want to keep sharing it because life is so awesome when you just like do it your own way.
That's it.
in control, or in
Yeah.
you know, not being controlled by others.
How do people connect with you or find out more about your mentorship and anything that you're working on or offering?
I don't have a website yet. Jeff's
Come on,
Jeff's
Jeff.
gonna help me. Just through my Instagram,
Which is
at bushrat_.
at bushrat_.
And yeah, email amy@betweenworlds.com.au. My business name is Between Worlds, so that'll be
It's a good name.
You've kept the bushrat.
Yeah, I almost didn't, but my name's Amy Smith, so
But you don't make it
options are
between
Smith.
worlds. You've
Yeah.
kept the bushrat.
I was
I
gonna
like the bushrat.
I was going to make it Between Worlds, but bushrat is me.
That's so cool.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the pod again.
My pleasure. I wish I could stay and talk.
Well, that's all right.
Next
No
time.
worries. Next time.
All good.
Yeah.
All good. And
Did you want to do our wrap up?
yes,
real quick?
make sure you like and subscribe, everybody listening, if you haven't already, because we're going to have more amazing guests like Amy on the show soon enough. Weekly, we try to do them. So yeah, stay tuned. Share it around if you found this valuable, you know. And you can check it out. You can find us on Instagram at Design on Purpose, TikTok at Design on Purpose. Are you on the TikTok? No. That's crazy. It's wild.
I can't go there.
Yeah, it's.
I'll just
We'll see where we go with it.
take me away
but-
from my children.
And you can follow WordPlay Studio as well, our design agency at WordPlay Studio, wordplaystudio.com, our website.
And the Telegram WordPlay Studio, where we just post, we kind of aggregate and post all of our up-to-date content on there as like a news feed. So jump on that.
Yeah. And we'll see you again next episode. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Aaron.